So I was looking around for something that I could showcase this idea of not only reproducing an antique garment, but also the lace on it. And I found this very sweet little corset cover on the Met's website from the 1880s. I think it's perfect. It has two different patterns of lace, but they both look to be fairly straightforward and easy to reproduce. I'm going to break this project up into 3 parts. This first video will be about reconstructing the edging lace. The next one will be the insert lace, and then the last one will be making the corset cover itself with the reproduction lace in it. So with that, let's get started. For this demonstration, I'm going to be using a colored thread with a very blown up pattern. This is about 1 inch wide. I think the original was only about 1/2 inch and would have used much smaller thread. I'm going to give you a copy of the pricking here on the screen. Feel free to print screen it and copy it out, or you can trace it off the screen, however you want to do it, but here's the pricking. I do have the entire thing written out step by step with diagrams, and I'll have that available on my Patreon site at the Lace Making tier. But if you're not interested in that, I will be walking through every single step here in the video, so you're not going to miss anything. To get started here, I've hung 3 pairs of bobbins at pin number 1, 1 pair of bobbins at 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then 4 pair of bobbins hanging here at pin number 6. The first thing we're going to do is cover our pins just a little bit. This is about where we're going to start with the repeat, and so I want to make sure that the bobbins are twisted and kind of set up the way they will be when we finish the previous repeat. Just a note, for this video I'm going to define a hole stitch as being a cross, twist, cross, and a half stitch as being a cross, twist. I realize that there are probably other ways to define those terms, and there are other ways to call that specific bobbin movement, but I think that this is the most universal way, so that's what I'm going to use. Alright, so let's cover our pins. Hole stitch the 10th and 11th pairs. Hole stitch the 9th and 10th pairs. Hole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs and twist to the 8th pair. Hole stitch the 7th and 8th pairs and twist. Hole stitch the 6th and 7th pairs and twist. And hole stitch the 5th and 6th pairs and twist. And what this will do is it'll kind of set it up to have the same twists and things going on as when we are finished with our repeat and we start over again. So there we are. We are ready to start with the foot side part 1. So we're going to start with twisting the 9th and 10th pairs, hole stitch, twist the 10th pair once, twist the 11th pair twice, hole stitch, pin to the left of the stitch at number 7, twist the 9th and 10th pairs, hole stitch, twist the 9th pair, hole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs, pin inside the stitch at number 8, twist the 9th and 10th pairs, hole stitch, twist the 10th pair once, the 11th pair twice, hole stitch, and pin to the left of the stitch at number 9. Twist the 9th and 10th pairs, hole stitch, and we're ready to move on to the spider. Alright, so our spider is made with the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th pairs. We're going to twist the 7th pair once and the 8th pair twice so that they each have 2 twists in them. Hole stitch. Twist the 6th pair once so that it has 2 twists in it. Hole stitch the 6th and 7th pairs. Twist the 9th pair twice. Hole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs. And hole stitch the 7th and 8th pairs. So all of our threads are crossed in the first half of the spider. And it's always hard to get the tensions right straight off in the beginning because the bobbins are all loose and they're not being held down by much, but it gets a lot better later on. All right, so we want to pin at the center of the spider here in pin number 10. Now the second half of the spider is almost exactly like the first half of the spider, only without all the twists. So we want to start by hole stitching the 7th and 8th pairs, hole stitch the 6th and 7th pairs, hole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs, and then hole stitch the 7th and 8th pairs. Twist each of the pairs twice, and that's your spider. So now we're going to go back here to the foot side part 2. Start with the 9th and 10th pairs. You're going to twist the 10th pair, hole stitch the 9th and 10th pairs, twist the 10th pair once, the 11th pair twice, hole stitch, pin to the left of the stitches at number 11, twist the 9th and 10th pairs, hole stitch, twist the 9th pair, hole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs, pin inside the stitch at number 12. And of course, if you're more used to doing half of the whole stitch and then pinning and then continuing with the whole stitch, that's fine too. I've just found that when I'm actually working at speed, I think that going ahead and making the stitch and then just kind of shove it in the center works best for me. But any way that you are accustomed to doing it is, of course, fine. Okay, so we have our pin at 12. We're going to twist the 9th and 10th pairs, hole stitch, twist the 10th pair once, the 11th pair twice, and hole stitch, pin to the left of the stitch at 13, twist the 9th and 10th pairs, and hole stitch. All right. So that is foot side number 2. Okay, so moving over to the left side of our pillow, we're going to start the scallop with the 2nd and 3rd pairs. We're going to twist the 2nd pair, half stitch the 2nd and 3rd pairs, and continue over across through the 5th and 6th pairs. Twist the 6th pair again, and pin at number 14. Half stitch the 5th and 6th pairs, and go back to the 2nd and 3rd pairs. Twist the 1st pair once, hole stitch the 1st and 2nd pairs, pin to the right of the stitches at number 15. Now, here in the beginning, like I said, it's really hard to get your tensions right because everything is so loose. But we'll do what we can, and it gets a whole lot better later down the road. Okay, so back across, twist the 2nd pair, half stitch the 2nd and 3rd pairs, and continue half stitching across. To the 6th and 7th pairs. So we just picked up our 2nd spider leg right there. Twist the 7th pair again. Put a pin at 16. And then half stitch back to the 2nd and 3rd pairs. Twist the 1st pair once, Whole stitch the first and second pairs. Put a pin to the right of the stitches at pin number 17. Twist the second pair. Half stitch the second and third pairs. Continue across through the 6th and 7th pairs. Twist the 8th pair once. Half stitch the 7th and 8th pairs. Twist the 8th pair again and put a pin. Put a pin here at number 18. Back to the 2nd and 3rd pairs, we're going to half stitch the 7th and 8th pair and continue back. Twist the first pair, pull stitch the 1st and 2nd pairs, pin to the right of the stitches at number 19. Twist the 2nd pair, half stitch the 2nd and 3rd pairs, and continue back across through the 7th and 8th pairs. Twist the 9th pair once, whole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs, and put a pin after the stitch at number 20. So here at number 20, this is actually the longest point of the scallop, and I want that point to be really sharp and really strong. So what I've chosen to do is have these two bobbins, instead of just kind of pick it up and keep going like we have, I want this one to hook around the pin and go back, and I want this one to hook around the pin and go back, so they hold like this and they'll keep on going. And I think that'll make a sharper, stronger point than just picking up the bobbin and carrying on. So we've got our pin at number 20. Twist the 8th pair, whole stitch the 8th and 9th pairs again. So now they're going back from whence they came. Then we're going to twist the 8th pair, half stitch the 7th and 8th pairs, and continue back to the 2nd and 3rd pairs. Twist the first pair, whole stitch the 1st and 2nd pairs, pin to the right of the stitch at number 21. Move my roll back a little bit again. All right, so we have our pin at number 21. We're going to twist the 2nd pair, half stitch the 2nd and 3rd pairs, and go back through the 7th and 8th pairs. So now we've hit our point and we've been incorporating them. Now we're going to start dropping them off. So we'll half stitch over, and this time we won't use the 9th pair. We're going to stop at the 8th pair. So we're going to twist the 8th pair again, put a pin here at number 22. Half stitch the 7th and 8th pairs and continue across back through the 2nd and 3rd pairs. Twist the first pair, hole stitch the first and second pairs, pin to the right of the stitch at number 23, so this time when we go across, we're going to drop our 8th pair. So we'll twist the second pair, half stitch across, twist the 7th pair again, put our pin at 24, half stitch the 6th and 7th pairs, and continue back to the 2nd and 3rd pairs. Twist the first pair, hole stitch the 1st and 2nd pairs, pin to the right of the stitches at number 25, twist the 2nd pair, half stitch the 2nd and 3rd pairs. This time we're going to leave out the 7th pair, and go back through the 5th and 6th pairs, twist the 6th pair again, put a pin at 26, half stitch the 5th and 6th pairs and go back to the 2nd and 3rd pairs, twist the first pair once, hole stitch the 1st and 2nd pairs, and put a pin at the last pin, which is number 27. From this point, you would start from foot side part 1, whether you're following along with the video or whether you have the written material. In the written material, there's some asterisks there. In the video, it's just foot side part 1. And you just want to repeat that and go through foot side part 1, then the spider, then foot side part 2, and the scallop, foot side part 1, and the spider, foot side part 2, and the scallop. And continue on until you have as much lace as you need. So there is one repeat or one section of this pattern. And I think I'll do it one more time with some music and without me talking, and that should be good. Okay, so there's another repeat. So now we have 2 of these little repeats. Let's take it off the pillow and see what we've got. Okay, so here is what we got. I'll put up a copy of the picture of the original here. This is much bigger than the product that I want to have for the final garment. The first mock-up that I made was in my beloved DMC tatting thread, which I have recently found out is discontinued. So you can stop looking for the DMC 80 tatting thread because it's not there anymore, which is really sad because now I have to go shopping for a new favorite and do lots and lots of mock-ups and trial and error and all that kind of stuff. But when I do find another really good tatting thread, I will absolutely let you know. But for now, this was made with the DMC 80. This was made with around a size 10 crochet cotton. And not too happy with either of them. I think this is too loose and too airy. I don't think it emulates the original well enough. So what I ended up going with was a pearl cotton, also by DMC. This is a pearl cotton number 12 in ecru. And this I think is pretty spot on for what I'm looking for. Also, I realized that underthings from the 1800s were almost always pure white. They were never, I mean, well, they came in colors too, but they didn't really come in ecru as much as pure white. They've aged over time. However, I don't necessarily love pure white as a color myself, so I'm going to stick with this kind of ecru color. one of probably many inaccuracies that I'm going to choose to make along the way. This is what I will use for the final. I'm not going to make the lace right now. I've got the pattern, I've got the thread I want to use. I'm going to put it aside and work on the insert lace. And then after that, I'll make the actual corset cover itself, and then I'll be able to measure everything and decide exactly how much lace I make, because I don't want to undershoot or overshoot it at all. Also, this is an example of 1880s bobbin lace. I would say that it very easily would be appropriate for a decade or so in either direction, so 70s to 90s probably. Of course, you could probably stretch it even farther, especially forward. But yes, this is absolutely appropriate for anything of that era. If you're not trying to recreate a specific item like this corset cover, feel free to mess around with different thread sizes and different pattern sizes. You could make this really wide, you could make it really narrow, you could use silk or rayon. Feel free to play around with it because there are lots of different ratios of thread size to pattern size, and this thread density is not written in stone. So feel free to play around with that if you're going to be recreating it for something of the late Victorian era. As always, feel free to ask me questions, and I'll do my best to answer them, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!